The Naked Gun is an action comedy movie directed by Akiva Schaffer. This movie stars Liam Neeson, Pamela Anderson, Walter Hauser, and Danny Huston. I've been a fan of the original Naked Gun movie ever since I saw it, and have come to really enjoy the style of comedy from that same team that made both that film and the original Airplane movie. Consistently, I think The Naked Gun is a very fun franchise to get into, and so I was anticipating this new movie, especially after finding out that it was being directed by one of the members of The Lonely Island. For this fact, and due to the fact that some other movies Schaffer has directed I have enjoyed, like the movie Hot Rod. I feel like with the material this guy is used to, this makes a good connection between the two. So how does this new movie compare to what's come before? And I suppose most importantly, in this modern landscape, is the actual movie funny? Well, let's find out. I'm going to start by talking about the performances, firstly with Liam Neeson. Putting his performance aside, I think it's hilarious that one of the reasons the guy was cast was solely because his name was the closest to resemble Leslie Nielsen's name. As for his actual performance, this is the first time properly Neeson has led a comedy movie, and I think he does such a great job at it. His comedic timing is basically perfect whenever he delivers certain lines and jokes. There's occasions where he'll make facial expressions that are done well enough to get reaction out of me, and the way he works off of other people in the movie was great. I thought him and Pam Anderson had really great chemistry. It made it no wonder as to why the two of them have now ended up together after doing this movie. Pamela Anderson is pretty good here too. Like Neeson, she has such a knack for comedy here. She has good comedic timing and is able to go all out, really committing to bits that she has to do, or even if the jokes are towards her own expense. But to be clear, with the type of writing this movie has, even if the jokes are at her expense, I felt that they were done tastefully. She can also be very expressive, not just with her facial expressions, but with other bits that they give her to do. Walter Hauser pulls off some good comedic moments here too. There are moments where he's given some physical comedy, and it's great to see him always commit to it as far as they're able to make him do it. On top of that, he has pretty good comedic timing, like most of the cast in this. Danny Huston plays the villain in this movie, and he does a good job at acting as threatening as the writing allows him to be when the movie presents its serious moments, while also having a good balance of being pretty funny with certain jokes he tells and the way he delivers them especially. He's a great match for Neeson as they bounce off each other pretty well as opposites. Kevin Durand is in this movie too. He's basically the second 2D villain in this movie, and similarly, when the screenplay makes him seem threatening, he does a good job at these moments. And in terms of comedy, he has a lot of good moments here. As like most of the cast, he has good comedic timing as well. One of the only cast members I thought just didn't really work for me was having Liza Koshy in the movie. For those who don't know, she started off her career as a YouTuber and now for some reason has started getting a good few movie roles. She just really didn't contribute much in this movie, and most of the things she said wasn't really that funny with her line deliveries. It was a weird inclusion to have her here, I felt. I found the plot of this movie to be well written for the type of movie this is. I didn't know what to expect going in, whether it was meant to be a remake, but this movie places itself as another sequel taking place years and years after the third movie. The usual legacy sequel treatment we've been getting in a lot of franchises nowadays. They definitely take the route of giving this a more serious crime plot, which is meant to comedically mirror the type of movies Liam Neeson has essentially been doing since he's been cast in the movie Taken. What follows is a fun caper with jokes at a rate of what feels like every 30 seconds. It was a joy to see, as I was either smiling or laughing the whole way through. There's a couple of plot lines thrown in that seem to either homage or parody other current action thriller movies. Hell, the villain's plot in this movie is basically the same plot that Samuel L. Jackson's character had in the first Kingsman movie. This movie is also really well paced. At only an hour 25 minutes, there isn't an ounce of fat on this thing, and it's written in a way where there wasn't exactly anything wrong with the story. The main thing to focus on in this movie, of course, is the comedy, and it is incredible here. It's so well written as there are jokes constantly in the foreground and background. There's the usual style of jokes in these movies that can be described as misinterpretation jokes, where a character says one thing and another character will interpret it in usually a literal way, which was always nice to see. There's a good few running gags here and there which somehow never got old whenever they were on screen. There's a really fun dream sequence which goes all out and completely unhinged that had me laughing at just how wacky they decided to take things. A part of me thought it maybe ran a little too long, but I didn't mind so much as it managed to stay funny for the majority of this bit. Surprisingly, this movie also wasn't scared to throw in some old school humor. Now with that in mind, it's not like this movie has characters saying repeating a bunch of slurs constantly. I was just surprised that there's occasional jokes in there that seemingly hasn't been done in most comedies in probably a decade, maybe even more, but they're all done tastefully so that they won't offend anyone, as I'm sure the writers were consciously cautious as to not throw these jokes in there for the sake of it. But with all that being said, this movie is funny as hell. It's quite possibly one of the funniest movies of the year, and maybe even the decade at this point. The cinematography in this movie was done by Brandon Throst, who's done cinematography for movies like This Is the End, The Disaster Artist, and most recently, the last two Sonic the Hedgehog movies. I didn't think going into this thing was something I'd have to touch on in the review, but I have to say, this movie looks gorgeous. This is one of the most beautifully shot comedies I think I've ever seen in my life. There's one close-up shot in particular which uses the type of lighting you would see in those old film noirs, which was a nice touch. The lighting in this movie in general is great across the board. This is such a colourful movie. In this bar scene, there's a nice array of different purples, blues, origins, and red, which was a feast on the eyes. This aspect, I feel, is always never really looked after in movies of this style, so it was really appreciated to see that here. I thought the music in this movie was pretty good too. It was composed by Lorne Balfe and Joel McNeely. I thought this duo did a good job at creating the type of music that would be heard in both modern and classic thriller films, or more specifically, using tracks that would be reminiscent of the original Naked Gun franchise. The original theme music for the Naked Gun does in fact make an appearance here. There isn't anything too unique. It's not like the music has been warped to be a complete parody of itself, but it suits many of the scenes that it's used in. Overall, I really enjoyed this film. This is a movie that could have gone either way. It could have been a generic, mediocre, borderline comedic trash like a good majority of comedy films seem to lend itself into being nowadays, but thankfully there was so much care put into this project from everyone involved. It'll be interesting to see where Neeson's career will go from here. If he decides to stick with doing comedy, as he's displayed a great deal of comedic talent here, I surely would love to see him branch out into other comedic roles in the future. Funnily enough, when I went to see this, it took the audience a bit of time, I think, to understand it, and I couldn't gauge the age range of these people, but from the reactions, it felt like these people maybe hadn't seen the other Naked Gun movies. So if this introduces new audiences to humor like this, then I think it's a great starting point for a lot of people. I'm giving The Naked Gun 2025 4.5 stars. This movie has great comedic performances led by the infectiously funny duo of Liam Neeson and Pam Anderson. It's a visual treat for both how the movie looks stylistically wise and for the amount of gags in the foreground and background. It's really not an understatement that there's probably a joke every 20 to 30 seconds, which this franchise is no stranger to. And what's fun as well is, I should say as a light spoiler, that the credits also include a lot of goodies, so for once in your life, maybe actually read the credits on screen, as there's some gags there to giggle at as well. I would definitely recommend this movie for, obviously, fans of this franchise and anyone who just enjoys and appreciates good comedy. I would recommend it to fans of Lonely Island and their style of comedy films if you're used to that sort of humor. Some of that is here as well, as is the usual Naked Gun humor. I suppose I could basically recommend this movie to anyone who wants to have a good time with the movies. It's still currently playing in theaters, and I can safely say this deserves to be watched on the big screen.